to Amtgard Leadership University at Keep on the Borderlands. For the next 45 minutes to an hour, we'll be talking about encouraging A&S. Thanks for joining us. I'm Petra, and I'll be your moderator. Thanks everyone for agreeing to speak on the panel today. If you could please introduce yourselves, who you are, where you're from, and how long you've been playing Amtgard, and maybe briefly talk about some main points that you'd like to cover today.
I'm Lady Valkyrie Nystrom Armstrong. I'm from Winter's Edge, and I've been playing Amtgard for about 3 years. As far as points that I want to cover, just making arts and sciences more about being fun, not always about climbing the achievement ladder. That's the main one that I would
My name is Kai. I've been playing 17 plus years. I'm the current monarch of Rising Winds. As far as encouraging A&S is concerned, just being there to teach, help gain access to materials, and encouraging A&S.
Hi, my name is Counselor Manama. I'm also from the Rising Winds. I've been playing for around 18 plus years. And the one thing that I want to we'll talk about at least at some point is I'm a big performance buff, so talking about getting people into performance, since it's kind of hard for people to break into usually, since it's in front of other people.
Hi, I'm Baroness Fiddles, the Hobbit from Winter's Edge. I've been in Amtgard for a little over 3 years, and I would like to talk about how to encourage the arts and sciences through classes and events and activities, but also online resources and online boards and how that can really effectively.
Okay. So, Valk, you started talking about a healthy or a fun culture in A&S, entering tournaments for fun. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what you think about
Yeah, so kind of just going into, not everyone's going to start off a master, and I feel like, it's okay to hot glue some things and make mistakes, and maybe you make some garb that looks really cool but doesn't have a French seam under it. There are, it's not all about the competitions, you can make a cool kit because you want to look like a monster, or, you can experiment with new materials. Everybody doesn't have access to embroidery machines and things like that, so experimenting with new things.
How do you get people into making their own stuff?
Personally, I talk to people about their characters and get them excited about their characters.
So I've noticed that craft nights can be really daunting at a park, but if you make craft nights kind of fun for everyone with some flavor for everyone, where you include a potluck element, or there are board games if your group's kind of a board game crowd, and then you have people also crafting, it kind of exposes the people in the park to into this closer-knit community at someone's home. But also, it'll expose those people who might just show up to have some food, or might show up to play games, to oh, that's actually pretty simple to make a chainmail necklace. Hey, could you show me how to do that sometime? So I think moments like that on a simple level can really encourage individuals to want to be active.
To further expand on that too, a lot of times, getting people to go places. I actually have a problem at one of my final park for a time where transportation was a big problem. They would actually all have to carpool to get to the park because a lot of them either didn't have cars, they didn't have licenses, things like that. So often bringing the A&S to them at the park. So I bring with me weapon making materials, or somebody else does, and they show at the park how to do it. Then that would get them interested in their home to also craft and things like that. It really does depend on your park though, and how willing people, because some people do love the social aspect of getting together, having food, hanging out, and then doing stuff.
Also, sometimes just sitting someone down in front of a sewing machine if like people will be like, oh man, I really like your pants. I wish I could make a pair of pants. All right, cool. I will come over to your house, bring some fabric. You can go get your own fabric, and I will sit down and we will make you a pair of pants. And then as soon as they figure out, oh, it's not this mountain. It's not daunting. It's easy to do a lot of the stuff. It's just that I feel a lot of people will psych themselves up, thinking after seeing like all this wonderful garb and like other creations, that's like I can never do that. It's like, no, you're not gonna be able to start off that way, but you can get there if you practice and try. Like, you have to actually try before you become a master.
So speaking more on getting people into crafting for the first time, are there any ways that you specifically target fighters or people who don't identify as artistic types to get into A&S?
I think it's touching on more like that crafting is for everybody. That you can be a good fighter and a good crafter. I know several people that do take their fighting very seriously and still like to make their own tunics or their own swords. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. You can do both.
I think there's this weird stigmata that if you fight, you can't craft. And if you craft, you cannot fight.
Yeah.
And like she was saying, like there are people out there that try to be very vocal about, hey, not only am I fighting and fighting well, I'm also making like beautiful applique tunics, or I'm making my own like perfectly balanced weapons. And I think once people start seeing and paying attention to those few individuals, and I believe we're starting to shift, then you'll start to see more fighters go, hey, it's not bad if I make my own sword. It's not bad that I make my own pants or cape or surcoat, whatever.
I want to touch on that real quick too. I think that when you're a fighter, making your own sword, especially when you can make it to your own specifications, becomes super important for people. You know, you want to have your own touch on your equipment because you know how you fight, and being able to craft something specifically for you, like your tunic for the way that you swing, or your sword for the way that you fight, is really important.
You can use like sword covers and shield covers as gateway crafts to get them into, because they want to look good in the field. Yeah, they want to, like people like to look good in the field. And obviously there comes a point where they're like, well, efficiency-wise, Omni Blade, you know, thinnest material possible in the sword is the way they want to go. But shields have a lot of like things, positive and cloth levers and appliques that you can do that when they get out there with the shield, that's the thing people see. In fact, people start identifying the fighter with the shield. And when people start realizing that, and then that, oh, I can make my own stuff to make myself unique, that could be a large way of getting them interested in that type of thing. And then you might, oh, like the applique. Wait, can I make my own shirt? Holy crap.
Oh my god. You can applique tunics as well as shield covers?
I mean, I'd say a decent amount of people in Fiddles and I's fighting company. I mean, our whole company is focused on fighting. To get into the company, you have to be focused on fighting. But I'd say at least half of the people in our company, over half, are very accomplished crafters as well. Like, one of our best fighters in our company is actually a surveyor.
So what is the role of classes in encouraging A&S, and how do you implement that to attract interest?
So, if I can take that one. Classes, I think, are essential. If you notice, you know, let's say your kingdom or your principality, you have, for some, you know, if you're running a lot of competitions and then you notice, man, there aren't as many entries or entrants now, I don't really know what's going on, because we used to have maybe 60 entries and now for some reason we have like 20. So one thing might be, well, your crafters might just be starting to get bored. And with teaching classes, then you're exposing them to new trades. So like, ooh, I can add dagged trim. I've never sewn dagged trim to something. That's cool. I just took a quick class on it. Or, you know, adding a little bit of flair with embroidery. But, and you can also not only have physical classes in person at events, but have encouraged people to make tutorials and to make write-ups and handouts and videos and keep that online culture alive. So when you're at home and it's not an event time, to be like, okay, I'm getting rejuvenated with this.
Also, I've kind of found, as I've like gone to events and stuff that have classes, you have to have kind of a balance between like your basic classes, such as like just to make a basic tunic, or to even just do interfacing like necklines on a tunic, like have those, but then to kind of hook people that maybe they already know how to sew, and it's just, well, I don't want to go to the sewing class because I already know how to sew. Have something that you don't normally see, like glass etching or plastic dipping. That way it's a, hey, I've never done that. I've been curious. Let's go see what it is. And if even you have like these 10 people that know how to sew, they show up. And even if like 1 or 2 of them are like, you know what, I'm gonna go out and like learn and like buy the stuff to etch glasses. You just passed on this knowledge to 2 people and they're gonna take it and run with it.
For classes, like I hyper-focus on performance, and that's usually what I go over for people for classes. And a large problem with performance classes is a lot of times the barrier to entry for them is performing in front of people. That's a huge barrier. Like they're like, I want to perform this one song, but I'm not sure how people are going to take it. And then using a class to let them perform that song in a more private setting, where they're like working on it, can give them that boost to actually get them to start being more confident in what they're doing. So, but that's really a barrier to entry for performance, because you're in front of people, and that's really hard for people to do. That's something that's outside of crafting almost, right? It's something that has to do with interpersonal communications for people, since it's such a hands-on type of craft.
On the whole classes thing, I think accessibility to classes is probably the #1 thing. I know, was it you or Arco that did the $20 challenge for the pants or something? Okay, so when we did a pants challenge, I actually advertised online that I was going to do a live stream of me making a pair of breast pants step by step. And so I told everybody, I think it was a week or 2 beforehand, so that people would know what night, and then I did a whole live stream. And so anybody could tune into that, and then they could comment in the comment section, and I saw that live and could answer any question that they had about the class. And they could either follow along and be sewing from home, or they could just rewatch the video afterwards. And I think that that's super important. I think just having these classes happen is really important, or like making events centered around classes, like the Arts and Sciences Symposium.
As an aside to that, we actually have a member in our kingdom who, Bane, Bounty Killer, Bounty Killer, who's doing live streams like freaking all the time.
Yeah.
And it is really cool, because I will go in and like, hey, I've never
Just
done
watch
this
it,
either.
right?
Just
It's
watch
super
it.
cool.
Yeah.
It's super convenient, and YouTube, you can say something for YouTube views too. But Facebook Live is awesome, because like you said, while they're doing it, you can be there or you can watch it. And having that flexibility doesn't make the video lost. Yeah.
So how do you encourage crafters who come to you looking for advice in an area you're not familiar with?
I try and find them someone that is familiar in that area, that I can then be that bridge. Like, I don't just like dump that person. I'm like, this person knows what they're talking about. Let's start a group chat together, because I'd like to learn more too, which is usually what happens because I get addicted.
Or I've taken my woman at arms, she does plastic dipping. I don't know how to plastic dip. So she's made me stuff, and I've taken it to other people that are prominent within the plastic dip circles. It's like, hey, she made this. Can I get some critique for it? Because I have no clue what to tell her. And so then I will take it back to her, and then also point her in the direction. It's like this is just what they've told me and what I remember off the top of my head, but you should go talk to that person, because they can help you way more than I can at this point in time.
Network is super important in the crafting world, as far as like getting to know people who are just doing just, you never know when you're going to be doing certain things, or you need to do something, or you want to do something new. Especially like if you're trying to do like crown calls or things like that. Like I should try to make this, and I've never done this before. And being able to have those resources. So especially like myself as a serpent knight, like my biggest thing is identifying like who am I teaching, like send them to, who are the leather workers, who are the garbers, all those things, all these things that I don't do. And because I know them, being in the game for a while, I can actually take them to that person and be like, hey, this is blah blah blah. This person's really interested. And often those people are running classes anyways, so it's also like, hey, I know this class is coming up too. You should go to that. But it's good to get with those people, because when they have that connection, when that new person has that connection with the person who's more of a master in that craft, they'll feel more inspired, because they want to actually do stuff now for that person. Like, hey, look what I made, and show that person now what it does.
And during my regent terms, I made a point to try and make a list of almost every person, or everyone that I could, and try to figure out of all the artisans, which can be really difficult when you have a really big kingdom, and then try to mark what their specializations are in, so that I could then contact them to teach classes. But also, as the regent, there's a daunting responsibility of giving awards. And sometimes, artisans are at completely different levels. But, and if someone's like on the upper end of their awards, and I'm like, ooh, I need to really start looking at what they're doing, but I have no expertise in that specific field that they're working in, it's just, I try to make sure to contact as many people that I know who are, do practice in that field for advice.
So on the flip side of someone just learning, how do you know when you're ready to start teaching?
That one's much harder.
Yeah.
Basically, you're ready to start teaching as soon as you actually learn how to do something, to be honest. I mean, always talk about, like, for schooling, like if you're in college and trying to do things, a lot of people don't learn how to learn. And that's actually like a big issue when you have these students that get into college and they have like this, they're ready for the upper level. They got like really good grades in high school and everything, but then when they get to the point where they're really having to sit down and crunch, right? They really have like a lot of information they can learn and things they've never even touched on before. They don't know how to learn, and really the best way to learn is actually a tutoring thing, where you look at something specific that you know, then you talk to somebody else who knows something else, and then you get together and explain to each other, hey, this is what it was. You're teaching each other, and really crafting circles has been the biggest thing. Like when you have that crafting night and you're like, oh, I can do this. Oh, I've done that before. This is how you do it. You've already started teaching. And once you start getting used to that, then you can take the step, well, I can do a class in this, because now I've gotten all this information from all these people. So you can do a lot of micro teaching, I guess you could say, with specific things you learn, and those reinforce your mind also to make sure that, yeah, I know how to do this, and then I'll remember that this is the method that happened. Whereas if you just do it by yourself, and you remember, and you did it that one time, you're like, you did the applique, or you did this thing, and then you don't touch it for a while again, and you didn't explain it to anybody, when you come back to it, you're like, oh crap, I have to relearn this. And that's actually usually a problem. That's what college students run into, is they'll like, oh yeah, I know how to do this, because when I looked at it, I knew how to do it, but there was no reinforcement there, so they couldn't actually, since they didn't teach it to somebody else, they didn't actually learn it as well. So my suggestion is you should start teaching, at least micro-teaching from the very beginning, explaining like how some stuff you've learned, and having these crafting circles and people that are really into crafting and being more approachable to be able to talk to them about that will help those people learn those things.
And if you're nervous about teaching a class, because you're like, well, I kind of just learned this new craft 2 months ago, that I made all these things with it, and no one else in my area is really doing this thing, and I want to teach to expose more people to what I'm doing. A great thing to do is to have a worksheet, or to have a handout, because the handout will help you as the instructor, think about your terminology, think about definitions and phrases that you're you want to articulate during the class, or materials, and that's kind of like an aid for you, but also an aid for your students.
I think it's important, when it comes to when are you ready to teach, that something that makes somebody hesitant to teach is that they're afraid that they're teaching it, I guess, wrong. But I think the number one thing to keep a mindset about is that there's always going to be a different method. Crafting is always evolving, and there's always somebody coming out with some new way to do something, and that's okay to teach one method and somebody else having another method.
I know one of the things that hesitates me from teaching is a lot of stuff I'm self-taught. I accidentally figured out how to do it, or I just literally just looked up a tutorial online. And so every time someone comes to me and goes, hey, I want to learn how to do that, it's kind of like, okay, I'll show you. I might get some terminology wrong, just FYI, but I can show you how to do that. So I have used the phrase, so this thingy here goes to this doodad here, and yeah, it just does something. It works. Yeah, it does something. And then I'll be talking to someone else, and it'll just be like, so they'll use the terminology. I'll just be I learned something. Yes.
So let's say you've done some micro teaching and you think you're ready to start teaching. How do you go about setting up your first class?
So again, I would make a handout and probably talk to other artisans who have had experience in what you're going to teach, and maybe just kind of talk about their process and your process, see where things parallel, and also if you feel like you might have anxiety with talking to people, you might want to just start trying to talk to as many people as you can at events before the event you teach. You might also want to just do a live stream of yourself doing that craft before you teach it at an event. That could be something that helps. I think with everyone, people have different methods that work for them, but trying to figure out, trial and error, what works best for you. But
and also practice. Like once you get your rubric, like what the points you want to hit, you can also kind of in front of the mirror if you're super nervous, or even maybe in front of a good friend. Practice at least hitting the points and what you want to talk about, and then you can ask their critique. And then also I feel that once you said it out loud, it kind of helps cement in your mind how you want the class to flow. And we always say practice makes perfect, so there's your practice, and then
I think the perfect is like a local park or a craft night. Then you have a variety of people that can ask you questions, and then that makes you more comfortable to maybe take it to a kingdom event or something like that. Start small, work up.
Also, as advice is be specific. There's some topics that are very broad or it can be really, really long to talk about, and people will start wandering their attention. They won't be able to focus on, or they need to practice what you're talking about. So if you start talking about a lot of different topics and you give them basically information overload them, you have to be very careful about those types of things because they won't get the same thing out of it that you expected. But if you keep your topics very specific and very more rigid, I'm going to talk about especially something like I do performance stuff. I always have to talk about something specific. I can't just be this is a performance class. Holy crap, there's so much to talk about. But I can be this is a performance class about, singing emotionally, right? And I can then be able to plan my class now off of just that topic. And then if people have tangential comments, I can always then interface with them specifically afterwards.
So on the tournament side, how do you encourage a healthy tournament culture?
I think that majorly comes back to the comments. I think that when you choose your judges for a tournament, you need to choose your judges wisely, and their comments need to be constructive. And when I say constructive, there needs to be a little bit of positive and a little bit of negative. You really have to bring a balance to that. What did they do right? What did they do wrong? What can they do to correct what they did wrong? Not just you did this wrong, good luck. I feel like comments are really why a lot of people do tournaments too. I know when I do a tournament, I really, really, really appreciate feedback that I can build upon. And when you just give somebody a 2 or a 3 or something like that and you never tell them why, that's incredibly discouraging and it hurts the competition culture a lot.
when I've run A&S tournaments, I'll tell judges, look, please write more than pretty or good job or yay, like please expand on that. And if you want to tell someone they suck, please word it a bit better, but also give them feedback on how they can fix what you see wrong, like she was saying. It's like I've seen someone's like first attempt at a surcoat. Okay, I see what they did wrong, and I wrote out a novel on how to fix their surcoat, and they actually came back to me like many months later going, so I followed your advice, and my surcoats are so much better. It's like, yes, I mean, because so many people are just used to judges doing the great job and not explaining, like we want to know how, like, we did a great job. Okay, tell us how we did a great job. Like, by all means, if you think this is the most god-awful thing, please tell us why you think it's the most god-awful thing. Like, we want to learn just as much as you do.
So there's a lot of Amtgard, especially in the last couple of years, have gotten a lot of new groups, and when new groups try to run tournaments, that type of feedback is almost non-existent. As I noticed, like a lot of the smaller parks, I've actually traveled to a lot of smaller parks recently in the last couple of years. Luckily, because I had internships and things around the country, I got to go to the West Coast, I got to go to Michigan, I got to go to some other places in the United States. And the smaller parks, they have the tournaments, they finally get their 3 to 5 judges, and the judges don't even know how to give comments, right? And then I'm sure that discourages people locally, and then they're just starting out. Some of these people, it's their first time entering, and they don't get any feedback, and they get like a 3. They're like, okay, and it sucks because you almost can't blame them because these are also new judges. Sometimes these judges, like, they've been in Amtgard for 6 months, and this is their first time at a tournament. Just they didn't want to enter things, so they're judging. And really, I think that's the kingdom's then responsibility to make sure they're talking to their monarchs and making sure that in their regents and things like that, have like a circle of regents, which is what like something like Rising Winds does, where people can ask, hey, I need judges at my local park because we're not giving good comments. Can somebody come, or can you give us advice on what we can do? And I think that would help encourage people then to increase their craft locally, so then they can actually bring it to the kingdom and bring it to other places.
Yeah, I completely agree with having, a constructive comment supported with a positive comment. But, when you start running very large arts and science tournaments, it can be so difficult for the judges. If a judge is they only have one day and they have to go through 40 to 60 items, it's going to be really difficult for them, time-wise, to be able to write out, like a paper or even a few sentences on each card. So something that I've recently participated in was the arts and science competition at the Gathering of the Clans this year that Sir Jocelyn ran. And so the judges didn't write physical feedback, but there was like a 1 to 2 hour time block right after judging was completed, where the judges, if they wanted to, stayed with the items and they just spoke one-on-one to participants. And that was probably the most feedback that I had ever received from an arts and science tournament. And it was the best feedback because some things are really hard to articulate, even in writing, especially if you're going fast. When you start talking one-on-one with someone who just looked and critiqued your item, they kind of have this stuff fresh in their mind, and it facilitates a great conversation.
So starting to wrap up here, the conversation about tournaments leads naturally into the conversation about awards. What role do you think awards play in encouraging A&S?
Well, this was kind of hinted on the previous panel too, and this is something that sometimes parks have a little bit of drama about, but for the most part, the lower level awards at Amtgard, Amtgard awards are this kind of scale. They're not linear. The bottom 3, essentially, some people are group 5, but the bottom 3 are you can't really say they're participation awards, but they're like, thank you for bringing your items to us. And that's like a huge deal because, especially at the park level, when they can only give out 3, it encourages them that once they get that, it's like oh yeah, I really got to do this again. I want more. And if they're really interested, they'll continue doing it. And if they're not, they'll go their own way. So I think 1 through 3 though are important ones.
I would say we have this joke where it's just like, okay, 1 through 3, just make it rain. Like on almost any of the on any of the awards, it's like A&S. Hey, you made this tunic. Okay, cool. That's like a garber. Yay, or a drag, and just something. And then once you get to like 4 and 5, it's like, okay, maybe I have to put some more like quality work into that, and then it just grows like from there. And I think that helps kind of lead people to get better, to explore new avenues of crafting and A&S and everything.
1 through 3 is like a gateway drug into the rest of the awards. But I really think, especially on awards, awards can either make someone or crush someone. And I think that it's really important when you talk to somebody. I've definitely been down this road myself, with like crafting things and then being like, oh, what's happening? And then it's really kind of coming to a conclusion that you should not craft for an award. You should craft for yourself and for the people that you want to craft for. But crafting specifically to expect an award creates nothing but bitterness and sadness. And that's super important that you explain that to anybody that's really getting into crafting. Is you want to do it because you want to look prettier, or you want your friends to look prettier, or you want to make your company look awesome, or something like that. And then the awards will come, because no matter what, it's not this like black and white across the board measurement. Like we have on the Arts and Sciences Anonymous page albums that show what people got their awards from different levels, but those crafts all very much vary. It's not going to be this like specific thing. You can't be like, oh, I made this exact tunic like this person in my kingdom and they got a 7th for it, so I should immediately get my 7th. Like that is just a terrible mindset, and we should absolutely be fighting that with any new player.
Yeah, and so we're talking about like the Owl, Dragon, Garter Awards, but I think something, when you run an arts and science competition, it's great to have physical awards specific for that competition. Whether it's like belt favors for all the category winners, or first, second, and third place prize, something, because that makes the pressure, I think, of, oh, I'm entering this competition, I hope that I'll get my ladder awards from these items, because there's nothing else to kind of, as a competition, some people enter to win a competition, but like, what do they have to show after that? And by having those physical awards and incentives is great, like on a personal level for the participants, but also, if you make belt favors for people winning these awards, they get to show them off, and then that might be a conversation tool to encourage, for them to use to encourage other people to start participating in tournaments or even get involved in the arts and sciences.
What type of tournaments or contests do you find are best received or encourage A&S the best?
I really like the $20 and under competitions that don't necessarily, that makes people get really creative. And it shows anybody that's coming into the game, they don't have to spend all this money or have access to all these tools to make really cool garb. And I've seen some people do some awesome stuff, like make apron pendants out of spoons.
I like theme-based A&S with awards that are part of that theme, because kind of like she was going off what she was saying, it really excites people, gets people involved, and they're more interested in that type of thing. Especially you incorporate it with, like, as a monarch, with your reign. A lot of people like to do like steampunk, or they like to do like Arabian, or they want to do something like that, and so they have that as their A&S competition, and then they get awards for that kind of thing. Like even in that style, like that's really exciting, and it also like
Actually, like the blanket under tournament, I've also seen it referred to as like the sapling tournament or something like that. It's just like 5th and under, 6th and under. And if you do that at like a kingdom level, because there are some people that they'll get up to they're at a shire, they get up to their third, and it's I don't want to go to kingdom, I'm scared, and it's like they're gonna like tell me I'm horrible, or like they're not gonna like what I do. It's like, no, you can come up here and do like the fifth, the 5 and under, 6 and under, and not be scared. Like it's not scary, guys. You can come on in.
Once a year in Winter's Edge, we run the big Dragon Master tournament, and that's our largest tournament. I think people just kind of prepare throughout the year for that tournament. So we get, we've had smaller themed tournaments, and but they're generally in our area less well received. But we've also run online challenges. So challenging people, okay, for this month, I'd like you guys, to make someone make something for your head, whether it's a helmet, a hat, or something, and then having some kind of prize or some kind of incentive for them to do that too. People get really excited about that because it kind of gives them like, oh, I love to craft, but I don't really know what to craft. Oh, this is cool. Yeah, I'll do that.
That stuff over the internet makes things seem easier too. You're not having to like drag your stuff to a competition, and then you just watch these people leer over your stuff on a table, and you're like, oh my God, what's happening? Like you're doing it in the comfort of your own house, and you take a picture of it, and you're like, this is what I did, which is super cool.
Okay, so as we wrap up, I'd like to see if each of you would like to revisit any points or leave any parting messages with our audience.
So I guess my number one thing that I'd like people to take away from this is crafting should be fun, and you should do it for your own benefit. Whether you want to make yourself look better, you want to craft things for loved ones, or you just want to learn something cool and new. I mean, that's why I own a million different things in crafting now, because I find something new and then I just collect it like a crazy person. So, but you want to do it for you, not for the awards, not for anything else. You want to do it for you.
No, basically the same thing, because a lot of my awards and stuff I've done have just been I wonder if I can do this. Holy cow, I did this thing. Yes, this is super awesome. Now let's see what else I can do. Let's go over here. If you look at everything that I've done, I don't have a straight path. I'm not a specific garber or painter or anything. It's just literally, yes.
Do the thing.
I do all the things.
Do all the things. Craft.
Except macrame. I hate macrame.
We should spread that meme around that says craft all the things.
Craft all the things.
So especially in performance, but it also applies to all crafts. Encouraging people to just come out and try to do things. Even when I started out, I was not the greatest at what I did. But after showing up what my weaknesses were from comments and things like that, and then getting that things, I eventually progressed to where I was. And everyone needs to understand that they start out like that. It took me many, many years to get my voice to the point where it is now. And it was not like that, 3 years after I started, when I started performing. I would get decent scores, but nothing near what I got when I started actually doing my master's for performance. So it's the same thing for crafts. The more stuff you make, the better you will be. And at first, it's almost quantity over quality at first. The more stuff you make, the more mistakes you realize you make, the more you shore it up, and then you can start concentrating on the quality.
I think, the most important thing for me, for encouraging the arts and sciences, is to stay positive and to try to create the most positive environment you possibly can and surround yourself with positivity. Because, and if you notice, if someone's starting to get bitter about their awards, it's okay, coach that person and try to find positivity in that situation and ways to make it fun for them. And if you notice, if you're a person that loves to talk, then maybe teaching is something that would be fun for you, and that creates a positive environment for everyone else. And even as a judge, when you look at items, keep a positive mindset and attitude, and think about, okay, I am critiquing someone's work, but I want to help them to get better. You know, just try to be as encouraging and positive as you can to make a healthy environment for your crafters.
Thank you to all our panelists, and thank you to our viewers for watching. Thank you to the audience.